Folks, is Star Citizen going to be dystopian style forever? It's not. But this question is coming up, I think, quite a bit, and I'm not going to say that I know a fact of how this stuff is going to go, but there's quite a bit of evidence that it's not, so I figured I could kind of sum it up a bit for you here, and we could talk about where Star Citizen's overall like design and architecture and all that kind of stuff goes. So, these kinds of weapons, locations, additions have all been looking really broken down since they started coming into Star Citizen. This is just the latest example. The Space AK, which personally I quite love, has been making the rounds. It obviously carries a style that we're seeing with quite a bit of other things in Star Citizen. And it feels like we're just never going to get solid, clean, I don't know, civilian or militaristic, just like nice styled stuff. Maybe a little bit here and there with some of the companies, but not as much as it seems like they're going with this style. And that all comes back to this screen. Now, we're not going to sit on this for a little while, but keep this in mind because we're going to come back to it a little bit later in this video and talk about why we are at the stage we are. It all goes back to Lorville. The lovely Lorville was being introduced back in 2018. This was kind of the first introduction of the what they call utilitarian style. It bleeds through Lorville. It built a lot of the initial sort of format for this style. Now, this isn't exactly what we see in Pyro, but it's derivative of it. And you'll see they're kind of related to each other. So a lot of this was going on with Lorville's developments. That's back in 2018. But it wasn't until we started to see assets from Pyro, which we realized that we were getting a little more frontier style. This is, many of you might remember this time, I think it was back, 2020 was back the first time we started to see introductions of what would eventually become Pyro. Here we are 5 years later, and they are in game. We are seeing them across Pyro. That's about it. I'm assuming they will also be in Nyx, but this is what this style has culminated in, and it's called the colonialism style. Now, Pyro has a lot of mixtures of this colonialism style, utilitarian mixed in, and generally just broken downness. All of that, though, is under the same umbrella known as colonialism. Microtech, on the other hand, has what we like to call high-tech style. And it's a little more smooth lines, or smooth surfaces, complete lines, nice, flowy foot traffic. I don't know what makes things high-tech, but you can see it, you know? Ask Morphologist. He could tell you probably pretty succinctly. But that's where that style kind of starts to shine through. You could see a little bit more of that in Orison as well. But for the most part, we haven't seen that much high-tech style. Everything has been generally utilitarian, that's one style, and colonial, that is the other style. And that takes us back to this page, this whole streamline here. You can see on the left side that utilitarian style is basically exactly what we have seen already at ArcCorp and Lorville. That is a mechanical or industrial, designed functionally aesthetic, or function over aesthetic, and built to be durable. This was the earliest time in human spacefaring history, I suppose, and so things were built basically to work. Think The Expanse, you know, we just learned how to get into space. Let's not try to be fancy about it, right? If you keep up with your Astro Historian, you follow the lore. Great series, The Full History of Star Citizen, go check it out. Over time, you will realize that we got into a colonialism phase where we started to move away from our utilitarian roots and got more into the let's spread as fast as we can and figure out how to do it efficiently. You can see that the pillars of this are a frontier vibe, a use of natural resources, and derelict archetypes. These three things are things that have been very, very in your face over the last couple of years with Pyro. Frontier vibe, check. That is both Pyro and Nyx. Use of natural resources. They specifically like to point out that they used surfaces like stucco, stone, and whatever the local materials of the planet you're on is to build these buildings. And you can kind of tell it's very markedly different from the metal and, well, mostly metal that they use in Stanton. And then finally, the derelict archetype. That actually wasn't just something that they brought in for Pyro. That's also something, let me see if I could find real quick. Even back in the Stanton system, these derelict settlements, the libraries they made for these, this is all derelict. this is the same style. And they applied it all over Stanton, partially because they needed to build it out for things like Pyro and Nyx as well. This is just the current architectural style that they are very, very sunk in on, and that they need to flesh out. Because at some point they'll move on from this, and they'll start working on some of the other styles that might fit a little bit better with things that we're more interested in. Key point, Sherman, Cascom, Castra. This is another style. If you go back to this page, you'll see that there are several others besides utilitarian colonialism and high-tech streamline, which was after the colonialism time. Metaclassicism in the middle there, which is kind of interesting. I don't even know how to describe this style, but you know what it is when you see it. And then the Henoistic era. Henoism conveys security, bunker, high defense style buildings, and austere. Sure, whatever. So we still have streamlined metaclassicism, Henoism, and supermodernism to find somewhere out here. And I'm not saying again that this is fact and this is definitely what they're stuck into. But it does seem like this is the direction they are going. These are the things that they're following, and it seems to be getting fleshed out just over time. Now, again, going back to see what Henoism looks like, clearly this is a bunker style kind of city. The city of Cascom is an old military base that has been retired and is now used mainly for civilian use. It's propped up on the top of a mountain in Castra, and it has orbital defense cannons. That's how big a deal it is. That's not really that relevant. But you can tell it has a very different style from the places we've been. I mean, look at this. It's clearly more military. It's more bunker style. It's less about looking pretty and more about being functional while also still having like a strong stance feel to it. And if you actually listen to what they have to say about this place, it becomes clear that they're still following this thing along. Listen.
Council headquarters located here. As this base was built during the Mesa era, as humans were expanding their borders, this introduces a new architectural style for humans. Between the First Travarian War on one front and the Xi'an Cold War on the other, a new style called Henoism arose. With an emphasis on prefabrication and fortification, the designs were robust, durable against warfare and harsh enemies and harsh environments.
So it does seem like they're following a roadmap for building out the different assets in the game. And while I do feel like the whole dystopian, everything's falling apart and dirty vibe is getting a bit old, I don't think that's where it's stopping, just like the rest of the development. I think that's just the state that they're at right now. I'd say give it a year. And let's see, once they're starting to talk about Castra, show off the stuff that's coming from Castra. I'm sure there are manufacturers in the system that make stuff that's more themed for the system. They've got their own clothing style. We'll definitely, I think, see more variety as we move forward. I just wanted to be the messenger. I can't say that's all guaranteed or fact. This is just the proof that I've seen out there. I hope you guys learned something from this. Maybe that answers a few questions. If you like these kinds of little bits of information here and there, I try to drop them on this channel at least once a week amongst a bunch of other news and podcasts and stuff. Check it out if you're interested. Do a subscribe, do a little dance. Have a good day. See you in the next one.